The storm had been raging for days, and in the heart of the city, a young woman named Alara felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. It wasn't the torrential rain or the relentless winds that scared her, it was the sense of hopelessness that had been creeping into her life like a shadow. Every door she knocked on seemed to close, every plan she made seemed to crumble. Her dreams of opening a small clinic to help children in need felt further away than ever. She had prayed fervently, night after night, but it seemed as though the heavens remained silent. Alara walked through the deserted streets, clutching her umbrella as the rain soaked through her coat. Each step felt heavier than the last, her mind spinning with questions she could not answer. Why did life have to be so cruel sometimes? Why did the darkness in the world seem so overpowering? As she passed the flickering lights of a nearby church, she hesitated. She had been a child of faith, once full of hope and trust in God, but years of disappointment had hollowed out her belief. And yet, something drew her to the church tonight. The doors were slightly ajar, and a warm light spilled into the stormy street. Alara stepped inside, the smell of incense and old wood wrapping around her like a blanket. She sank into a pew near the front, her hands trembling. The church was empty except for the soft sound of a piano playing a gentle hymn somewhere in the back. Her eyes closed, and she whispered a prayer, almost as if speaking to a friend she hadn't seen in years. God, she said softly, I don't understand. I've tried to do good, to help others, to follow your way. And yet, it feels like everything I love is slipping through my fingers. Is there a purpose in all this pain? Silence followed her words, heavy and thick, and Alara's chest tightened. She opened her eyes and stared at the altar, the candles flickering, casting long shadows across the walls. Her heart was tired, and her faith felt fragile. But then, a quiet voice, deeper than her own thoughts, whispered through her mind. I won't let darkness win. Alara froze. Her first instinct was to think it was her imagination, a desperate wish for hope manifesting as a voice. But the words were calm, certain, and filled with a power she couldn't explain. She leaned forward, her forehead resting on her folded hands, and whispered, Who's there? The voice returned, this time stronger, filling the empty space around her. My child, I see your pain. I see the darkness that surrounds you. But I am with you. Even when you cannot see the light, even when the world seems to have forgotten you, I am here. I will not let the shadows take your heart. I will not let darkness win. Tears streamed down Alara's face. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight that lifted the crushing pressure from her chest. For the first time in months, she felt something shift inside her, a glimmer of hope, fragile but undeniable. She whispered back, barely audible over the patter of the rain, but it feels like everything is falling apart. I can't do this alone. You are never alone, the voice replied. I have placed people in your life, opportunities before you, even when you cannot recognize them. Trust in me, and take one step at a time. You do not have to conquer the darkness on your own. I am your shield, your light, your strength. The battles you face are not yours alone to fight. Alara felt a warmth spread through her, a calm she hadn't known since she was a child. The storm outside still raged, but inside the church, there was a peace she couldn't put into words. She sat up slowly, wiping her tears, her mind racing but lighter than it had been in weeks. Over the next few days, Alara began to notice subtle changes in her life. Strangers smiled at her in ways that felt unusually kind. A friend she hadn't spoken to in years called, offering help without expectation. Even small tasks that had seemed impossible now felt manageable. And yet, challenges remained. Bills piled up. Her clinic plans still faced hurdles. She knew the darkness had not vanished. It lurked, patient, persistent, but she felt different. She felt armed, not with solutions, but with a newfound resilience, a certainty that the storm was temporary and that light would return. One evening, exhausted but determined, Alara returned to the church. She knelt before the altar, feeling the cold wood beneath her hands, and spoke openly to God. I don't understand the reasons for all this, but I trust you. I believe you are with me. Help me to see the light, even when the night is long. Help me to not give up. As she spoke, she felt the same quiet power from before, almost like a gentle wind brushing against her soul. It wasn't a voice this time but a feeling, steady, unwavering, impossible to deny. The darkness outside still howled with the storm, but inside her, a flame was ignited, small but fierce, a reminder that she was not abandoned. The days that followed were not easy. Life tested her in ways that were exhausting and painful. A supplier threatened to pull support for her clinic. Her savings dwindled. The city around her seemed filled with indifference, greed, and cruelty. Yet, each time she felt despair creeping back, she remembered the words that had visited her heart in the quiet church: "I won't let darkness win." She began to pray differently, not for her problems to vanish, but for strength, clarity, and courage. She volunteered at a local shelter, helping children and families in ways small but meaningful. And in those moments, she felt the voice again, not condemning, not instructing, but reminding her of a profound truth. Darkness may rise, storms may rage, but light endures. You are part of that light. You are never alone. I won't let darkness win. Alara realized that faith was not just about waiting for miracles, it was about finding the courage to face the storm, to take one step at a time, and to trust that God's presence was the unmovable anchor beneath the waves. That night, as she lay in bed listening to the rain, she whispered a vow to herself and to God: "No matter what comes, I will not surrender to darkness. I will be a beacon of your light." Somewhere deep inside, a transformation had begun. She wasn't the same person who had walked into the church days ago, weary and doubtful. She was stronger, steadier, and ready to face the trials ahead with faith as her shield. And although she could not see the full path before her, Alara knew one unshakable truth: the darkness might roar, it might linger, it might try to convince her that all hope was lost, but God had spoken, and His words would not fail. He would not let darkness win. The weeks that followed were both challenging and miraculous in ways Alara could not have imagined. Each day brought new tests, but each test carried an unexpected gift. The voice she had heard in the church, the steady, unwavering promise that darkness would not prevail, had become her compass. She felt it in quiet moments: the soft nudge to make a phone call, the inner courage to speak out for a child in need, the calm determination to keep moving forward even when every circumstance screamed, "Stop." Her clinic project, once teetering on the edge of failure, began to take shape in small but undeniable ways. A local contractor, inspired by her dedication, offered to reduce construction costs. A retired doctor volunteered her time on weekends. Donations trickled in from strangers who had heard of Alara's mission, as if invisible hands were guiding resources to her just when they were needed most. Each act of kindness, every unexpected opportunity, felt like confirmation that she was walking a path illuminated by more than her own efforts. But life's trials did not disappear. One rainy evening, as Alara closed the temporary community center she had rented for consultations, she received a call that shook her to the core. Her younger brother, Aiden, had been in a car accident. The injuries were serious, and the doctors were uncertain about his recovery. Fear clawed at her chest, but amid the panic, a quiet voice stirred her soul: "I won't let darkness win." With trembling hands, she drove to the hospital, rain streaming down the windshield, each drop reflecting the chaos of her emotions. In the emergency room, she found herself face to face with doctors and nurses moving with clinical precision, while her brother lay unconscious, fragile and silent. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios, but deep inside, a calm insisted: she was not alone, and neither was Aiden. Alara held her brother's hand, whispering prayers she had never thought she could muster in such desperation. Hours passed like years, each tick of the clock echoing the fragility of life. Then, in the quiet hum of the hospital machines, a nurse approached with a smile. "He's stable," she said softly. "We'll do everything we can. He's strong. He's going to fight." Tears of relief streamed down Alara's face. She looked up and whispered, "Thank you, God." In that moment, the voice that had carried her through storms and doubt returned, clear and unmistakable. "Even in the darkest night, I am with you. Stand firm, for the dawn is coming." From that day onward, Alara's perspective shifted in ways that were profound and permanent. She understood that darkness, whether in the form of fear, loss, or failure, would always exist in some measure. But God's presence, His light, and His promises were far stronger, enduring, and inescapable. She began to share her experiences openly, speaking at community gatherings, local schools, and even on social media. Her story resonated deeply with those who had faced despair. People began reaching out to her, sharing their struggles, their doubts, their fears of the darkness closing in. And Alara, once overwhelmed by her own challenges, found purpose in guiding others toward the same hope she had discovered. One evening, she received a letter from a young woman named Mari, who had been living in a shelter after escaping an abusive household. Mari wrote about feeling invisible, hopeless, and trapped in the darkness of her circumstances. She admitted she had almost given up entirely, until she read about Alara's journey and the message she carried: God won't let darkness win. Alara held the letter close to her chest, her heart swelling with empathy and gratitude. She wrote back, not with empty platitudes, but with the truth she had lived, that even in the darkest moments, faith and perseverance can ignite a spark of light that grows into a guiding flame. As the months passed, her clinic finally opened. It was modest, simple rooms, worn furniture, and hand-painted signs, but it was alive with hope. Children who had never had access to proper medical care came with their parents, their eyes wide with curiosity and fear, leaving with smiles and comfort. Families who had long felt abandoned discovered that someone cared deeply for their well-being. And in every corner of the clinic, Alara felt the unmistakable presence of God. Quiet, steady, and powerful, a constant reminder that the darkness would never have the final word. But Alara's journey was not just about external victories, it was about the transformation within her soul. She had learned that faith was not a shield against pain but a source of resilience in the midst of it. She had learned to see challenges as opportunities for growth and to recognize God's guidance even when it came in unexpected forms. Most importantly, she had learned to trust, without reservation, that the light would always overcome the darkness. One night, after a particularly long day at the clinic, she returned home to find her apartment silent and peaceful. She sat by the window, watching the city lights shimmer like tiny beacons against the night sky. For a moment, she allowed herself to reflect on everything she had endured, the storms, the setbacks, the fear. And then, quietly, she whispered a prayer. Thank you, God, for never leaving me. Thank you for showing me that even in the darkest moments, your light shines. Help me to continue being a reflection of that light for others. The response came, as it always had, not in a voice, but in a deep, unshakable certainty that filled her heart. I am with you. You are never alone. Darkness will not win. A soft smile formed on her lips, and she leaned back, feeling a profound peace settle over her. She realized that this journey, with all its trials and triumphs, was far greater than the opening of a clinic or the healing of her brother. It was the awakening of a faith that could withstand anything, a faith that radiated outward, touching lives, and inspiring hope. Months turned into years, and Alara's work grew. The clinic expanded, reaching more children, families, and even entire communities. She trained volunteers, shared resources, and built networks of support. And in every encounter, she carried the unwavering message that had once transformed her own life: God will not let darkness win. Through her faith, Alara discovered that light does not always roar. Sometimes, it whispers, patiently, persistently, until those who are willing open their hearts to it. And in every act of kindness, in every hand she held, and in every life she touched, the darkness was met and diminished, not by force, but by the quiet power of unwavering light. One evening, as she closed the clinic for the day, she paused at the door and looked out at the city. The sky was a deep, velvety black, but stars glimmered defiantly, piercing the night with tiny points of brilliance. And in that moment, Alara understood the full depth of what she had been told in the quiet church months ago. The storms would come, darkness would rise, fear and doubt would knock at every door. But the light, God's light, the light He had placed within her, within every willing heart, would endure. And no matter how strong the shadows seemed, they would never win. Alara stepped forward, her heart steady, her faith unshakable, ready to continue the work she had been called to do. The darkness had tested her, but it had not defeated her. And she knew, without a shadow of doubt, that it never would. For God had promised, He would not let darkness win.